What makes movies so magical? Discover the enchantment of cinema and what makes movies so magical. From iconic film scores to breathtaking cinematography, we delve into the world of movie magic, exploring the elements that transport us to new worlds, evoke powerful emotions, and leave a lasting impact on our lives. So, whether you're a film buff, a casual viewer, or simply someone who loves the art of storytelling like I do, Backstory Movies is for you. Join us as we uncover the secrets behind the magic of movies and celebrate the art form that has captivated audiences for generations. Get ready to be spellbound by the wonder of cinema and find out what makes movies so magical. So get your tickets, grab your popcorn, shop the merch, and get ready for a new cinema in movie storytelling at Backstory Movies. Visit our website at backstorymovies.com, where movies are an adventure, and shop the merch at Creativity is Expression.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just looking at a movie. We are cracking open a time capsule.
That's a great way to put it.
A time capsule made of cheap gin martinis, moral compromise, and the desperate, just heartbreaking pursuit of success. We are talking about Billy Wilder's 1960 masterpiece, The Apartment.
It truly is a foundational text in cinema, isn't it? What our source material lets us do today is go so much deeper than just enjoying the story.
Right.
We can really look at the sheer audacity, the creativity, and frankly, the financial risk that went into making it.
And it's that blend. This film somehow managed to blend the darkest, most cynical satire of corporate climbing.
With a genuine, aching search for human connection. And that synthesis, that's why it still resonates so deeply today.
That balances everything. It really did set a new standard for blending that sharp comedy with profound darkness.
It did.
It ensured it wasn't just a product of the late 1950s. It was a commentary on human nature that lasts far, far longer.
Precisely. And when you really analyze the core themes, the naked ambition, the personal morality, the transactional nature of power.
In isolation.
The isolation of the white-collar world, absolutely. You realize these aren't period issues. They are universal struggles that just get redefined in every generation.
So our mission today is to take a deep dive into the architecture of this classic. Where did the concept even come from? How was the perfect cast assembled? And what were the innovative techniques that forged its cinematic legacy?
It's a great set of questions.
Okay, let's unpack this. What makes a film truly timeless? What lets it survive these wholesale changes in society and cinematic trends without losing its power?
I think the answer always lies in the clarity and the singularity of the vision, especially when that vision is challenging the status quo.
And in this case, the vision belonged almost entirely to one person.
Well, one key partnership. It belonged to Billy Wilder, of course, alongside his essential co-writer, IAL Diamond, and their collaborators. This deep dive will introduce you to the architects of this classic. We'll explore specifically how they built a story so rooted in the cynical truth of their time that it still feels painfully, personally relevant 6 decades later.
Let's start right at the genesis then.
Yeah.
The foundational idea. We established that Billy Wilder's role was absolutely central.
Oh, without a doubt.
Not just as the director who staged the scenes, but critically, as the co-writer who hammered out the narrative structure with Diamond.
And that combination is just indispensable, especially for a story this delicate. When a director is also that intimately involved in the screenplay development, they maintain a level of creative control, a singular vision that is nearly impossible to get otherwise.
So he wasn't just interpreting a text.
Not at all. He was meticulously authoring it. He was making sure that every single piece of dialogue, every visual cue served that central theme of compromise.
And that allowed him to perfectly thread that needle we talked about. Yeah.
Exactly. That seamless transition between biting corporate satire and, deep emotional vulnerability.
And the initial concept for The Apartment. On the surface, it's pretty simple, yet it's so morally fraught.
Right.
The story of C.C. Baxter, this junior executive who tries to climb the massive corporate ladder by loaning out his humble private apartment to his higher-ups for their clandestine, adulterous affairs.
The genius isn't just the plot, though. It's the spark of inspiration behind it. And this is one of those great nuggets from the source material. The concept was actually rooted in specific, deeply uncomfortable, real-life events that Wilder observed decades earlier.
Tell us more about those origins, because often the best fiction stems from uncomfortable truths, doesn't it? It gives the final product that necessary edge.
It absolutely does. What's fascinating here is that the specific inspiration traces back to a pretty notorious Hollywood scandal from 1948.
Okay.
It involved a producer named Walter Wanger and the actress Joan Bennett. Wanger actually shot Bennett's agent, a man named Jennings Lang, after catching them together. So the sensational aspect for the public was, the violence and the betrayal. But for Wilder, who was always observing human behavior, the real story lay in the periphery.
What do you mean?
He heard a detail about where the affair had been taking place. It was in an apartment secretly borrowed from an employee, someone desperate for advancement or maybe just too intimidated to say no to their superior.
So the tragedy wasn't just the shooting or even the affair. It was the degradation of the person who had to sacrifice their home, their private life, just to facilitate the moral failings of someone powerful.
Exactly. Wilder realized that the real victim was that nameless employee, and he carried that observation for years, just waiting for the right vehicle. That observation is what gave the screenplay its acidic authenticity.
So it wasn't purely invention.
Not at all. It was commentary based on the systemic exploitation within contemporary societal norms, specifically the hierarchical American corporate culture of the late 1950s.
And the timing was so crucial, wasn't it? The film came out right as that corporate world was just exploding. It was defined by this kind of gray flannel conformity.
Absolutely. The film is a product of the post-war economic boom. You had this massive rise of the white-collar workforce, the organization man, where individuality was kind of stifled in favor of fitting into this giant structure.
So the film didn't just appear out of nowhere.
No, the apartment didn't spring forth fully formed in a vacuum. Wilder and Diamond were synthesizing traditions. They were taking the sharp, cynical dialogue of screwball comedies
Right, that rapid-fire wit.
and the moral ambiguity of film noir structures, and then injecting them with all the post-war anxieties about corporate morality.
So the specific premise, C.C. Baxter loaning his apartment, it struck such a chord because it perfectly encapsulated that transactional nature of ambition at the time.
It did.
It spoke directly to the audience's unspoken anxieties about having to play the game.
It's the ultimate uncomfortable favor, isn't it? You are trading your private life, your sanctuary, your home, for what? For the faint promise of a better desk.
And the audience at the time would have recognized that.
Oh, completely. The contemporary audience recognized that desperate scramble for success and the degradation that often came with it. The screenplay didn't just tell a story, it held up a mirror to the ambitious but morally weary corporate man.
And what's so interesting is that while Baxter is a victim of this oppressive system, he is also a willing participant.
That's the key.
He's the one who first offers the key, hoping for a promotion. The film refuses to let him off the hook easily, which is crucial for maintaining the dramatic tension and making his eventual redemption feel earned.
That's the tightrope they walked. If he were purely a good man, the satire would be toothless. If he were purely cynical, the romance would be unbelievable.
And Wilder, as both writer and director, made sure every beat served that central question.
Yes. How far will Baxter go for success, and at what cost to his soul? That foundational idea, rooted in that real-life observation, is why the narrative structure feels so robust and so enduring.
And that tension is established right from the very first scenes, where we see him constantly clearing up other people's messes, always on edge.
And uncomfortable.
Never comfortable in his own skin or his own home. It just sets the stage perfectly for the enormous moral and emotional toll this whole transaction takes.
It's the perfect high-concept premise. It immediately establishes the stakes. A man selling his peace of mind, one weekend at a time.
Okay, so once you have that brilliant, cynical, and surprisingly tender architecture of a story, the next step is finding the right people to live in it.
The human factor, yeah.
It had to be perfect. If the leads failed, the entire delicate balance of comedy and tragedy just collapses. So let's talk about C.C. Baxter, the everyman of ambition, and the selection of Jack Lemmon for that role.
Lemmon was more than just a casting choice. He was the essential chemical component. Baxter is an incredibly difficult role.
Why is that?
Because he has to be pathetic enough to be exploited. A doormat, literally. But also charming enough and possess enough inherent goodness that we as an audience remain invested in his redemption.
Right. He's facilitating some serious moral decay, yet we have to root for him to reclaim his soul.
Exactly.
I wonder, though, Lemmon was already pretty famous by then. Didn't that risk making the audience see him as too much of a star, rather than a genuine, pathetic everyman stuck on the 19th floor?
That's a really sharp question, and it speaks to the genius of Lemmon's specific acting style. Yes, he was a star, but he specialized in a particular kind of high-strung, anxious energy.
I can picture it now.
His characters often look like they were just about to spontaneously combust from nervousness, and that particular blend of pathos and energy was the essential ingredient for Baxter.
So if they'd cast someone else.
If they had cast a leading man who was too suave, the exploitation wouldn't have been believable. If they cast someone too purely pathetic, the audience would have just been repelled.
He had that unique vulnerability that humanized Baxter's moral failures. He looks physically worn down by his circumstance. You can see it on his face.
Absolutely. Lemmon's performance is all about internal conflict bubbling up through nervous tics and fantastic physical comedy.
The spaghetti scene.
The scene where he's trying to drain spaghetti in a tennis racket, it's hilarious, but it's also profoundly sad because it shows how chaotic and compromised his life has become.
He can pivot so quickly.
His ability to pivot instantly from slapstick to deep existential sadness, often just with a look in his eyes, is what carried the central moral weight of the film. He makes the humiliation palatable for us.
He sells the desperation of that junior executive trying to climb the massive corporate ladder. He isn't inherently corrupt, is he?
No, he's trying to survive in a corrupt system and paying a terrible price for it.
And this choice, casting Lemmon, it reflects Wilder's determination to maintain that moral center.
It does. Lemmon embodies that nervous striving, that ambition tempered by inherent good nature. It's what makes his ultimate moral choice, to choose love and integrity over the corner office, truly meaningful and deeply satisfying for the audience.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's pivot to the lead actress, Shirley MacLaine. Her character, Fran Kubelik, the elevator operator, provides the emotional anchor for Baxter, and in many ways, she's facing even darker circumstances.
Fran is the true collateral damage of the corporate environment that Baxter is just trying to navigate. Her story is equally tragic, maybe more so.
And it reflects those massive power dynamics inherent in the office.
For sure. She's involved with the most powerful executive, Mr. Sheldrake, who is using her just as callously as he uses Baxter's apartment.
And the sources give us a specific insight into MacLaine's casting and her audition process, don't they? They illustrate that human moment that really defines film history.
They do. Wilder needed someone who was completely authentic, someone who could convey immense emotional depth and resilience without ever dipping into melodrama.
And he found that in MacLaine.
He found it in MacLaine. The anecdote about her casting is simple but so telling. She walked into the office, she read the scenes, and then when they asked if she had any questions about the character, she looked Wilder straight in the eye and asked, "How does this girl ever get out of this mess?"
Wow, that one line. It shows she wasn't just focused on her performance. She was focused on the existential crisis of the character. She completely understood the weight of Fran's situation.
Precisely. MacLaine brought this natural, unvarnished quality to Fran. She wasn't playing a victim. She was playing a woman striving desperately for a genuine connection in a completely dehumanizing environment.
She had the comedy chops, too.
She had the comedic timing necessary for Wilder's fast-paced dialogue, but she possessed that gut-wrenching vulnerability required for the film's darkest moment, the attempted suicide sequence.
And the chemistry between them, between Lemmon and MacLaine, it had to be instantly believable.
It was. They weren't glamorous. They were wounded. And their connection felt so profoundly earned because they recognized each other's pain.
And when those two carry the emotional core, we absolutely cannot forget the shadow and the support, the supporting cast.
Vitally important.
Specifically Fred MacMurray and Ray Walston. They were so vital in creating and anchoring the film's corporate and moral landscape.
MacMurray as Mr. Sheldrake, the manipulative, callous executive, is just chilling.
And you have to remember, MacMurray was known for playing well, nice guys.
Exactly. He was known for playing affable, good-natured suburban dads on TV by this point. But Wilder cast him because he remembered MacMurray's brilliant, icy villainy from Double Indemnity.
A completely different kind of role.
A different universe. Sheldrake needs to be smooth and powerful enough that his behavior, while disgusting, feels permissible within the company structure.
He brought a chillingly smooth authority to the role of the boss who exploits both Baxter and Fran. He's the ultimate embodiment of corporate amorality, hiding behind a well-pressed suit.
And then you have Ray Walston as Dr. Dreyfus, the cynical but ultimately caring neighbor. Walston acts as the moral compass of the whole apartment building.
He's the outsider looking in.
Yes, he's the one who watches Baxter's deterioration with confusion and eventually forces him to face his actions, often believing Baxter is the source of all the noise and moral chaos.
Walston's character is essential for the structure, isn't he? He brings the external judgment that the corporate world completely lacks.
That's a great way to put it.
He sees the consequences of Baxter's life choices. He's literally charting Baxter's moral decay through the increase in noise, activity, and eventual tragedy coming from that apartment.
The whole ensemble works as a perfect microcosm of society. McMurray as the exploiter, Lemmon as the exploited, McLean as the collateral damage.
And Walston as the concerned, often judgmental bystander.
Exactly. Without the strength and specificity of that supporting cast, the high stakes of Baxter's dilemma would just fall completely flat.
Now we move from the human equation to the architecture of the film itself, how they physically built this highly specific world. As we noted, the environment in the apartment is not passive.
Not at all. It's an active, thematic participant in the story.
That's absolutely right. The intentional design of the physical environment, that massive insurance company office, the sterile streets of New York, and especially the apartment, was all meant to reflect the characters' internal states.
And the film's themes of isolation and overwhelming structure.
So discussing the critical choices made regarding filming locations and set design is crucial here. Let's start with the office, because the scale of that insurance company is truly breathtaking. It sets the stage for Baxter's insignificance from the get-go.
The contrast between the office and the apartment is the primary visual metaphor in the film. The office is vast, impersonal, overwhelming. Wilder needed to visually emphasize Baxter's crushing insignificance.
To show him as just a cog in a gigantic, uncaring machine.
Right. And this design choice visually reinforces the corporate pressure that motivates his unethical behavior.
So how did they achieve that illusion? I mean, it looks like there are thousands of desks stretching into the distance. It looks endless, like an ocean of ambition.
This is where the true visual innovation comes in. They couldn't possibly afford to fill a real set with thousands of extras and desks.
Of course not.
So Wilder and his cinematographer Joseph Lachelle, they employed these ingenious techniques, primarily forced perspective. It's a classic method in set design where objects and people are strategically placed to manipulate the audience's perception of scale.
Can you break down the mechanics of that for us? How did it work in practice?
Certainly. They built the set in layers. In the foreground, where Jack Lemmon walks, the desks and props were all full size.
Okay, standard enough.
But as the set receded into the background, the desks, the chairs, and even the actors became progressively smaller.
You're kidding?
No, they actually custom-made miniature desks and typewriters, and they used children or very small adults dressed in business suits for the very back rows.
That's incredible.
And the deep focus cinematography ensured that everything, from the foreground to the seemingly endless background, appeared clear. It makes the illusion completely convincing.
And the result is a visually jarring experience. You feel the immense, suffocating size of the company and Baxter's sheer anonymity within it.
That attention to technical detail is astonishing. And as you said, it serves a profound narrative purpose. It makes the world feel cold and overwhelming, a perfect machine of conformity.
And then you have the apartment. It's supposed to be his sanctuary, but it becomes a waiting room for adultery.
It becomes a physical manifestation of his moral compromise. It's cluttered with the detritus of others' affairs, empty bottles, lipstick stains, discarded clothes.
The apartment set was so intentionally designed to reflect the moral squeeze Baxter's experiencing. When it's being used by the executives, it feels transient and cold. But when Baxter is alone, it shifts. It feels so deeply lonely and claustrophobic.
And that shift is handled primarily through lighting techniques, which also count as a significant innovation. Wilder and Lachelle use a dramatic contrast, almost a neo-noir style, especially during the nighttime scenes in the apartment.
So lots of shadow.
Lots of deep shadow, sometimes called chiaroscuro. It enhances the themes of secrecy and moral darkness. The lighting often feels low-key or moody, reflecting the moral shadows the characters inhabit, particularly when Fran is in the apartment after her attempt on her life.
It's the visual language of compromise and pain. When Baxter is alone, the deliberate, precise use of light and shadow often just isolates his face, forcing you, the audience, to look directly at his moral quandary and his loneliness.
And creating a classic is never easy. Our sources remind us that even the apartment faced challenges during the actual shooting process.
Right, especially with those massive sets and the exteriors. Exploring these difficulties adds depth to the narrative of creation. It shows that even classics face real-world friction. What were some of the logistical hurdles?
Well, translating a script this intricate, moving seamlessly between slapstick, romance, and near tragedy that demanded precision and time. Logistically, shooting exteriors in Manhattan in 1959 was chaotic.
I can only imagine.
Wilder insisted on using real New York locations to give the film authenticity, but this meant fighting traffic, noise, and trying to maintain that sense of isolation despite the urban environment.
And the sources suggest these challenges, including the complexity of managing that forced perspective set.
It pushed the team to work faster and more efficiently, which led to those innovative solutions we just discussed.
That level of visual storytelling and technical cohesion requires intense collaboration. We need to acknowledge the entire crew, including the film's composer, Adolf Deutsch.
And the vital role of teamwork, yes. Production insights revealed that the atmosphere was one of high professionalism and artistic partnership. Deutsch's score was absolutely essential.
Why was the music so key?
Because the music needed to bridge that massive gap between the film's comedic surface and its dark, dramatic core. You can't just put typical lush romantic music over a story about adultery and suicide.
So the score has to cue the audience. It tells you exactly when to laugh nervously and when to feel genuine heartache.
Exactly. Deutsch delivered a score that was intentionally understated, often melancholy, and slightly jazzy, matching the urban setting. The main theme, which is somehow both slightly upbeat and deeply sad, provides the emotional subtext for Fren Kubelik's vulnerability.
And that ensures the final, cohesive vision of the film holds together.
It prevents the satire from overwhelming the genuine human feeling. The collaborative effort between Wilder, the actors, the set designers, the cinematographer, and the composer resulted in a world that is visually authentic and emotionally charged, where the setting is as much a psychological space as it is a physical one.
Let's shift our deep dive into the heart of the matter. The film's profound thematic resonance. The apartment is celebrated precisely because it doesn't shy away from uncomfortable truths.
No, it leans right into them.
It's a masterful study in the tension between genuine love, naked ambition, and personal morality.
This is the absolute genius of Wilder and Diamond. They managed to balance this sharp, unrelenting satire of corporate climbing
Where success is literally predicated on providing a safe haven for illicit behavior.
with a genuine, tender quest for human connection. The ambition is naked. It drives Baxter to degrade himself. The morality, however, is what he struggles desperately to reclaim before it's too late.
It's a perfect illustration of the corrosive nature of unchecked ambition in a hierarchical system. Baxter starts off wanting success, but he only achieves notoriety for being the executive's convenient doormat. His identity becomes defined by his compromise.
And the satire is effective because it's so deeply rooted in the absurdity of the corporate power structure of the time. It critiques a society where personal integrity is less valuable than facilitating the comfort and secrets of your boss.
Yet, crucially, the film never becomes purely a cynical exercise.
No, never. The emerging, fragile relationship between Baxter and Fran is the powerful antidote to that corporate poison. It proves that genuine human connection is the only thing capable of redeeming them both.
To truly understand that journey toward redemption, we have to focus intensively on the symbolism within the film, specifically analyzing the apartment itself.
It's so much more than a setting.
It functions almost as a full-fledged character, bearing witness to both the corruption and the eventual salvation of C.C. Baxter. This is a critical aha moment for the listener, understanding how a cramped space becomes a moral battleground.
This raises an important question. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the apartment is arguably the most potent symbol in the entire film. In the first half, it is the primary site of Baxter's fall.
Right.
Every time he hands over that key, he is handing over a piece of his identity. It is a moral vacuum, a place where people engage in deceit and escape the consequences.
While Baxter's left to clean up the mess and deal with the intrusive neighbors and the noise.
It's a silent, messy observer of all the bad behavior. The physical setting reflects his spiritual exhaustion. It's cluttered, it smells of cigarette smoke and cheap alcohol, it's constantly noisy. He literally can't rest or be comfortable in his own home.
That physical environment is intended to make you, the viewer, feel the weight of his dilemma.
It is. But the symbolism shifts profoundly in the film's second half, culminating in that emotional climax. When Fran is rushed back to the apartment after her attempt to take her own life,
Everything changes.
the apartment ceases to be a tool for corruption and becomes a literal sanctuary.
Because Baxter makes a choice at that moment. He chooses to care for her, completely rejecting the corporate expectation that he simply ignore the mess and wait for the next executive to show up.
Exactly. He starts cleaning the space, both literally and figuratively. When Dr. Dreyfus sees Baxter caring for Fran, he finally understands that Baxter isn't running a brothel, he's trying to save someone. The apartment is redeemed when Baxter finally takes control of it.
He reclaims his home.
He reclaims his home and his morality simultaneously, choosing to use it for care, sanctuary, and moral recovery.
That transformation makes the department not just a backdrop, but a narrative device that charts the protagonist's entire moral arc. It literally transforms from a den of iniquity, a moral holding cell, into a safe, warm home where real connection can begin.
And it's in that small space, just playing cards, that they find genuine intimacy.
We must analyze the impact of contemporary social issues that were intentionally reflected in the film. This contextualizes it, moving it beyond mere entertainment to a piece of powerful social commentary relevant not just to 1960, but to the pressures of success in any age.
The film was released right at the peak of post-war American economic expansion, a time of massive affluence, but also enormous social and sexual repression, particularly in the workplace.
And it targeted the conformity, the materialism, and the deeply entrenched male hierarchy of that environment.
It was a remarkably daring move for a mainstream comedy. The film addressed issues like corporate power leading to moral decay and the difficult, often invisible position of women like Fran Kubelik within that power structure.
Her vulnerability is directly tied to the gross imbalance of power in the workplace.
Absolutely. The film's commentary on adultery and the casual cruelty enabled by high corporate status was incredibly pointed for its time.
It's interesting how they handle the idea of suicide, a subject virtually untouchable in mainstream comedies back then, but they treat it with such seriousness.
They make it clear that Fran's desperation is a direct result of the dehumanizing environment created by the Sheldrakes of the world.
The film refuses to offer easy answers or pull its punches regarding the emotional stakes.
No, it doesn't. By focusing on the interior struggle of the individual against an oppressive system, it captured the zeitgeist of the era. It acknowledged the dark side of the American dream, the emotional and moral cost of chasing that status.
So what does this all mean? If we pull all this together for the audience, what was Wilder really trying to tell us about the American dream in the 1960s?
He was saying that success achieved through moral compromise is ultimately a form of self-imprisonment. The film dared to suggest that the true cost of the corner office wasn't money, it was your soul and your peace of mind.
And that resonance is precisely why the themes remain so potent for modern audiences.
For sure. We're all facing new versions of corporate pressures, whether it's hustle culture or the transactional nature of digital networking. The choice between integrity and advancement remains universally relevant.
A film of this complexity, which blends such uncomfortable truths with high comedy, must have had a fascinating initial journey. Let's talk about its immediate impact upon release. Was The Apartment an instant critical success, or did its unconventional tone take some time to find its footing?
It was recognized almost immediately as something exceptional, though its tone, that blend of, holiday cheer and office party atmosphere with a near tragedy and suicide attempt, it definitely sparked conversation.
I bet it did.
But critics understood that this wasn't simply a lighthearted romantic comedy. It was a devastating satire, and that depth was precisely why it gained such rapid acclaim.
And the film performed well commercially, but its critical recognition truly established its immediate importance. Our sources confirm it was recognized right away through awards and accolades.
Oh, absolutely. It didn't just win a few minor prizes, it fundamentally dominated the 1961 Oscars.
Dominated is the right word. It swept the major categories, didn't it?
It did. Best Picture, Best Director for Wilder, and Best Screenplay. Receiving those top honors right out of the gate solidified its place not just as a popular film, but as a critically serious piece of art that tackled major societal issues.
And that recognition gave it the authority to influence subsequent filmmakers.
It proved that you could successfully integrate such dark satire with such earnest romance.
But the truly defining measure of a classic is its long-term influence. How did The Apartment impact cinema, and what pervasive influence did it have on future generations of filmmakers?
Its influence is enormous, especially on the development of modern narrative structure. First and foremost, it shifted narrative expectations.
How so?
Before The Apartment, the genre lines were often much stricter. You had comedy or you had drama. Wilder proved that by treating serious, potentially dark subjects, adultery, exploitation, despair, with a light, witty, and sometimes absurd touch, you could achieve a deeper, more profound emotional truth.
So it essentially gave filmmakers permission to tackle sensitive, complex, and cynical topics without having to resort to heavy melodrama.
Yes,
It allowed the audience to laugh while simultaneously feeling the underlying pain.
exactly. It became the template for the dramedy genre long before that term was common. Subsequent films dealing with corporate malaise, cynical romance, or the isolation of urban life owe a colossal debt to Wilder's approach here.
So all those movies with a deeply flawed but ultimately sympathetic male protagonist in an unethical workplace.
They are all descendants of C.C. Baxter.
And beyond the narrative, the visual storytelling techniques we discussed earlier, using set design and lighting as psychological commentary, became staples of advanced filmmaking.
They became tools to immediately communicate the emotional state of a character or the corrupt nature of an institution. Its continuing relevance goes beyond being just a classic you admire for historical reasons.
It's still teaching us things.
It set a benchmark for writing dialogue that sounds effortlessly witty but carries immense emotional weight, and for directing performances that balance high energy with profound sadness. It taught filmmakers that their protagonists could be flawed, even complicit in immorality, as long as their ultimate quest for redemption was genuine and centered on a human relationship, not a corporate title.
The enduring echo of The Apartment ensures that it's not simply a dusty relic. It fundamentally altered how stories are told on screen, specifically in how it navigated and resolved moral ambiguity in a mainstream context.
It remains a masterclass in restraint. Wilder shows you just enough of the darkness to feel the despair, but he reserves just enough hope and humor to make the final choice, the redemption, feel like a true victory.
What a journey. We've synthesized the history of The Apartment, moving from that initial, real-life-inspired concept rooted in scandalous observation all the way to its creation by the focused vision of Billy Wilder and his collaborators.
And the perfect casting of Lemmon and McClane proved so essential in selling that difficult blend of pain and wit.
And the technical artistry using forced perspective and deliberate lighting turned a cramped apartment into a powerful symbol of moral compromise and eventual redemption.
And this film's overall importance and legacy is clear. It's a cultural monolith because it dared to examine the cost of success in a rapidly changing, wealthy, yet isolated world.
It proved that cynicism and sentimentality could coexist.
And in doing so, yield a deeper, more resonant emotional truth about what it means to be a decent person in a system that constantly rewards indecency.
The central themes, the moral compromises, the search for genuine connection in a transactional, high-pressure world, they resonate so profoundly with modern audiences. We may not be dealing with the same type of 1960s corporate structure.
But the pressure to sacrifice personal values for professional gain is arguably even more insidious in today's digital, always-on economy.
The need for a sanctuary, a place of genuine safety and connection that remains universal, and Baxter's decision.
To choose the human relationship in his own integrity over the corner office.
It's perhaps the most enduring and radical message of the film. It reminds us of the profound power of setting as symbolism and the courage it takes to root a story in uncomfortable truths.
It really does.
So we leave you with a final thought to mull over, challenging you to consider how today's popular narratives might be viewed 50 years from now. This raises an important question. What is the key moral ambition that truly defines the best films of our own era?
That's a great question.
Are we still obsessed with a corporate ladder? Or have our compromises simply taken on different forms? Perhaps trading privacy for convenience or trading authentic identity for digital validation?
That's a question for you to explore as you consider the enduring quality of truly compelling storytelling and what enduring human truth sits at the center of the narratives we consume today. Thank you for diving deep into cinematic history with us.